About 4 years ago, Audi was one of the first European luxury manufacturers to introduce a long-range battery electric SUV to the marketplace with the original Audi e-Tron. Now, at the time, this car had very few competitors, from the Tesla Model X to the Jaguar I-Pace. However, since then, we have seen a ton of new competition come out from BMW, from Genesis, from Mercedes, and even a few mainstream offerings from Ford and from Hyundai and Kia. So this week, as you can see, Audi has loaned me their latest e-Tron. This is a 2023 e-Tron Chronos edition. It's technically the highest spec that you can get of the standard e-Tron body style. And unlike some of its competitors, this continues to be an interesting tweener vehicle because it's bigger than most of its rivals, like the Genesis GV60, but it's also not quite as big as cars like the Rivian R1S and the Cadillac Lyriq. So if you guys are looking for a battery electric long-range SUV and you want something that's a little bit more traditional looking, how does the 2023 Audi e-Tron stack up? Stay tuned to find out. Now, because this is an all-electric vehicle, I'm going to start with the million-dollar question that a lot of people have about EVs. Does this vehicle have a frunk? Now, I'm happy to report, even though this car is technically not built off of a dedicated EV architecture, Audi did manage to still stuff a frunk underneath here, albeit a very small one. It has roughly 2 cubic feet. It has just enough space for a couple of things, but mostly you'll probably just use it for the included onboard mobile charger. As you can see, the charging cable fits in here just nicely, and unlike other vehicles that have this kind of setup, Audi still lets you kind of see the front motor and some of the wires and some of the electronics. But since we're underneath here, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain specs for this car. All e-Trons come with dual motor all-wheel drive. There's also an S version that adds a second motor at the back axle, so it's technically tri-motor. I haven't had a chance to drive that yet, but the dual motor setup here gets its power from a 95 kilowatt hour battery pack. Roughly 86.5 of that is usable. And this model here has about 355 horsepower and 414 pound-feet of torque. Now, if you guys put it in dynamic mode and put the transmission in S, you can activate a boost function, which will increase that power to 402 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque for up to 8 seconds. That's how you're going to get the quickest 0 to 60 time. It all goes out through a single-speed reduction gear transmission. So unlike the e-Tron GT, which is built off of the Porsche Taycan's architecture, this actually has a 1-speed transmission as opposed to a 2-speed transmission. It also means it doesn't technically charge as quickly. This will accept a maximum of 150 kilowatts on a DC fast charger. Audi claims 0 to 60 performance is roughly 5.5 seconds in the boost mode. We've got our equipment. We'll test that out when we get this vehicle out on the road. Range for this car is going to be at around 226 miles on a full charge, which is definitely trailing the competition. Cars like the BMW iX get well over 300 miles of range. Same thing with the Tesla Model Y, which is technically smaller than this car. The cool thing about the e-Tron is it is able to tow. This vehicle will tow a maximum of 4,000 pounds with the tow package. And it also is a heavy vehicle because of the big battery pack. It weighs in at just under 5,800 pounds. But let's go ahead and close up the hood and talk about the exterior styling. Now, this particular one here has the black optics package painted in Mythos black. It's black on black. It looks sinister. It looks menacing. It's standard when you guys go for the top of the line Chronos edition. You can see this SUV just has presence to it. Even though it's been on the market for a few years, I think that Audi did a really great job with the styling. The grille, you can see, unlike most EVs, it does have like a traditional looking grille with their single frame. There is actually an opening in the grille, but it also is partially closed off. Love the black rings, love the S-Line logo, the very small e-Tron badge in the actual grille. And then you can see my tester has the optional digital matrix full LED headlights. These headlights are sweet at night. They will project images and such onto the roadway and onto buildings at night, and it just makes for a cool light show. You can see it includes sequential LED turn signals, LED daytime running lights, LED low and high beams, no fog lights, but you do have these cornering all-weather lights built into the headlights. You can see there is a functional opening over there that allows air to pass through and create an air curtain, all for aerodynamics, of course. And then you can see here, looking around the side profile, the e-Tron is an SUV, although it only offers around 6.9 inches of ground clearance. Now, this car does have air suspension when you can raise and lower it based on the drive mode, but don't be looking for an off-road setting. This is a road-going, all-electric SUV. Now, looking at the wheels, you can see this Chronos edition includes, with the black optics package, these beautiful high-gloss black 21-inch wheels. You can see they're wrapped in two 65/45 Continental cross-contact all-season tires. Love these 6-piston orange painted brake calipers. You can see it's a vented rotor. The brakes just look really good along with the e-Tron badge over here. So there's the charge port door on the driver's side. You can see it's a motorized door. It's the same thing on the passenger side. And like I said earlier, this has the combo fast charger on the driver's side. On the passenger side, it's just the J1772 plug. This will accept a maximum of 150 kilowatts, which means you can go from 10 to 80% in about 30 minutes. And on a level 2 charger, it has an 11 kilowatt onboard charger, which means you can go from empty to full in roughly 9 to 10 hours. So that's pretty standard stuff. It's not quite as fast as some of the competitors like the Genesis GV60. And like I said earlier, this model here has a range of around 226 miles. You have a charge port on the passenger side and on the driver's side. This only has a J1772 plug. The other side's where you'll find the DC combo fast charger. But backing up here, let's take a look at the rest of the side profile. This has a very traditional look to it. In fact, I actually think it looks really sleek. But this is where you're going to notice the e-Tron is bigger than most of its competitors. Its wheelbase is around 115.7 inches long. That's actually shorter than some competitors, but its overall length is 193.4 inches long. This is about 7 inches longer than a Mustang Mach-E or a Tesla Model Y, but it's also about 7 inches shorter than Audi's Q7 or a Tesla Model X, for example. So it's a nice tweener, mid-size electric SUV, something along the size of like a Lexus RX, for example. So it's a really good size vehicle for a lot of people. Now at the back, you can see a very traditional corporate Audi look with the full-length LED taillights, with the light bar, the sequential LED turn signals. I also like how this kind of mimics the design from the front headlights. And then down here you can see my tester has the tow package, no visible exhaust tips. Remember, this is an all-electric SUV. And then there's a small little e-Tron badge. The naming of this vehicle is confusing. I almost think that Audi should call it like the Q6 e-Tron because to show where it fits in the lineup, although there is a Q6 in China that's built off of the Volkswagen Atlas platform, I believe. But opening up the trunk capacity, because this is a mid-size SUV, you get around 29 cubic feet of space. There is no third row available on this car. It's just a 2-row vehicle, but this is a very generous amount of space. It's a little bit more versus what you're gonna find in some of the smaller compact entries. Open this up, you can see there's a temporary spare, and it's a really deep storage bin. There's actually some nice hidden storage under there. And if you want, you can also pull this lever over here, pull both levers if you'd like, actually, which is nice. And then you can see here, you can get up to 57 cubic feet of total space in this vehicle, which is nice. If you guys go for the Sportback version, it's going to actually reduce the cargo capacity by about 2 cubic feet. So that's something to keep in mind if you guys want the sleeker styling. So now that we've talked about the exterior of the Audi e-Tron, let's go ahead and hop inside the interior and show you guys what that's like. However, before we do that, here's the key fob for the e-Tron. You can see it's the same corporate Audi key fob. It's actually one of my favorite key designs because it's a very small, sturdy feeling key with traditional unlock, lock buttons, and open up the trunk button, panic button on the back. It says e-Tron on the back of the fob. And I believe if you have access to the Audi Connect app, you should be able to also access the remote start and ping the vehicle via your smartphone. But opening up the door, you saw it has traditional door handles, and my tester's black exterior is complemented by a black interior. This is not my preferred color choice, especially if you guys live in a hotter climate. It also doesn't show very well on camera, but it looks good when it's clean. You can see the e-Tron has a really nicely styled cabin that's very traditional Audi. The door panel here, you can see, has a soft touch injection molded plastic piece on the upper portion, although it could be softer and leather stitched. There's some suede Alcantara here, real metal trim along with a pretty sizable and sturdy feeling door handle. You also have nice satisfying clicks from the metal window controls, one-touch windows for all four. You have power folding mirrors, and you have 2-person memory seats. Down here it is hard touch plastic. There's some good storage, and then the Bang & Olufsen stereo also sounds great for those of you, again, who are audiophiles. Now looking at the seats, you can see these seats are adjustable in like 18 different ways, I believe. They are heated and ventilated, and they also include a massage function, which is nice. The headrest also allows you to kind of push it forward and back for those of you who like the headrest to be further away from your head. And the seat's comfort itself, the leather, feels pretty high quality. These are among the more comfortable seats in the segment still, even though I've tested a few other of its competitors. But with around 7 inches of ground clearance, it has a very easy step-in height. No need for running boards or anything like that. And then my tester, because it's the Chronos edition, also has soft closing doors. So again, that's a feature that you typically don't find in a lot of its mainstream competitors. If you shut the door normally and slam it, it has a nice solid sounding thunk. This is built off of the MLB Evo platform, something that it shares with the Audi Q5, the Audi Q7, the Porsche Cayenne, and the Porsche Macan, for example. Now, starting the vehicle up, the start-stop button is down here. put your foot on the brake, and you can see that turns the vehicle on. It has the usual chimes that you associate with Audi, and then you can see there are 3 digital displays. You have a 12-inch virtual cockpit display over here, or I believe it's like 12.3 inches. You have a 10.1-inch display over here, which you can see it's got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. This is the latest version of Audi MMI, although it is starting to, I think, need an upgrade in terms of software. I noticed it was laggy at times to start up, although this time, of course, it worked really quickly, but it's only because I'm showing it on camera. I decided to behave. Down here, you can see there's an 8.8-inch touchscreen that is basically for the climate controls, and you can also reach a few shortcuts here, like your home link and the heads-up display, a downhill assist control. Your heated and cooled seat control is also in the touchscreen over here. It has haptic touch feedback. Same thing with the top portion over here, which is pretty nice. And then you can see here it has built-in GPS, which Audi uses Google Earth, and you can also put the GPS over here as well in the virtual cockpit display. You can also change the view, make it look a little bit smaller or larger. So that all looks pretty cool. It's about what you expect in most modern Audis. In terms of the dash materials, you can see this is a soft touch injection molded plastic. It's the same material over the door panel. There's some genuine leather stitching going along the rest of the dash. That lights up at night with a lot of some piano black plastic accents. Love the open pore gray finished wood. It looks great. Although this right here is like kind of like a rubberized plastic piece. I think they could have stitched that in leather or something like that. There's some piano black plastic over here, which is gonna show fingerprints and dust, although it does resist it a little bit more than some of the competitors I've seen. And then you can see over here, that's to kind of adjust your Audi safety system. If you push that, it'll go into your driver assist, so you can kind of quick access to that. Volume knob over here, and then down over here you can see you almost want to move this entire lever, but this is just where you rest your hand. This is actually what puts the transmission into drive. Reverse, you can see push up. There's your full 360 camera with parking sensors. It also has a full perimeter scan 360 view, which again, Audis are one of the best in the business for technology and camera systems, and that is certainly no exception. Push the P button here to go into park. Your electronic parking brake is over here. Down here you can see there's a nice, pretty deep center console area where you can store things, loose things like change, keys, cup holders. You can also close up a lid over here. I also like how your smartphone kind of fits perfectly right in there. You have a padded armrest over here, which is nice. And then this center console storage is a little bit on the small side. I like how there's 2 USB-C charging ports, and there's like actually a pass-through right over here, which is pretty nice, where cords you don't want cords to kind of show. You can kind of hide them in there. The one thing my Tester is missing is a wireless phone charger. The Audi Smart Box system has been deleted, and I suspect it's because of the chip shortage. This model here doesn't have a wireless phone charging pad, which is kind of annoying. I mentioned earlier the seats are comfortable and supportive. There's the glove box over here, you can see is huge. It's damped in line with felt. You can see a lot of my camera equipment just kind of fits in there pretty nicely. And then above me, unlike some competitors, the e-tron has a sunroof that actually opens. You can see the sunroof opens up over just the front seats, and it's nice that it does. It's the largest that it opens. There's also a retractable sunshade. There's a woven material here on the headliner along with LED map lighting, and then LED lighting throughout the cabin, which makes it look a little bit nicer. But overall, the cabin here with all of its luxury and technology and the triple screens definitely feels modern and high-tech. The software just needs an upgrade. The interior space also feels good. Visibility is good. This is definitely still a very nice cabin to spend time in. Moving to the back seat of the e-tron SUV, because this is a mid-size offering, you are going to get more legroom in the back, roughly 39 inches, which is a couple inches more than its competitors. The door panel you can see here has a soft touch injection molded plastic, leather stitching over here. It's hard touch over here, more metal accents for the Bang & Olufsen stereo. And then you also have these really nice manual sunshades to block out more of the light. These seats also fold down in a 60-40 manner. Sadly, however, they don't adjust, but you can fold them down, but you can't actually recline the seat back. So that's something that some competitors offer. But getting back here, there is a very good amount of space back here. For somebody who's 5'7", shutting the door has the same thunk as the front. You can see I can get comfortable pretty well back here. I have a lot of headroom. I have a lot of foot space. I have rear seat air vents on the B-pillar here, along with more of them down here. You also have your own set of quad zone climate control, which is definitely nice, and Audi throws in heated back seats. Back here, the floor isn't completely flat, but it's close, although this center console kind of intrudes a little bit on the middle passenger, although the vehicle is kind of wide enough to be able to accommodate that. Fold this down, you can see there is an armrest with some storage and dual cup holders, which is pretty nice. So overall, if you want more backseat space, the e-Tron SUV definitely delivers on that. This is going to have more space versus a lot of its more compact competitors. So it's been a few years since I had a chance to drive Audi's first mass-produced electric vehicle, the e-Tron. This car came out in like late 2018, and since then, there have been quite a few competitors, so it's good to get back into an e-Tron because this was one of the first mid-size, truly mid-size long-range battery electric vehicles, and Audi has made some changes. They reduced the price significantly a couple years ago, but this competes with vehicles like the BMW iX, the Cadillac Lyriq. This is technically a size above versus cars like the Tesla Model Y. It's also not quite as big as a Tesla Model X, so it's an interesting vehicle, and it offers up to 226 miles of total range, which isn't great on paper. Now, this model here that I'm driving is not the S model, the higher performance version. I was kind of hoping that I would be testing that, sadly, but without it, it still makes up to 402 horsepower and overboost, so let's go ahead and see what we can get here. That was with me brake torquing it slightly, and I got 0 to 60 in 5.29 seconds. I will say that this car feels sluggish off the line. It doesn't unleash all of its horsepower and torque quite as immediately as a lot of its competitors. I mean, this thing still feels quick. You put your foot down, it has instantaneous thrust once you get going. But from a dead stop, I noticed that it feels a little sluggish off the line, but 5.29 is also a perfectly respectable time. It's a little bit quicker versus something like a dual motor all-wheel drive Mach-E. But just keep in mind that something like the BMW iX is considerably faster than this vehicle. And the 0 to 60 time to get this, you have to have it in sport mode, and you have to activate, or you have to access the boost function, which you only get in sport mode. But what's really interesting about the e-Tron SUV is the fact that this doesn't technically share the same platform as the e-Tron GT. There are two different types of vehicles, completely different platforms. This is technically built on the MLB Evo platform, something that it shares with the Audi Q5 and the Audi Q8, the Q7. So, which means this vehicle isn't going to be quite as sporty to drive. Now, you do feel the weight in this car in the corners. This is a 5,800-pound SUV, but it also feels, pretty planted because the weight is down low. This is a relatively large 95 kilowatt-hour battery pack, and it is a heavy vehicle. It is heavy even by standards of this size class for it. But the steering in the car is typical Audi. It's a little numb. It's quick to respond. The suspension is air suspension, but you definitely feel that it's been tuned for soft cruising. It's a GT luxury car. In fact, this might have one of the best ride qualities that I've tested in an electric SUV. It's right up there with the BMW iX. A little bit more comfortable to me versus the Cadillac Lyriq because this car has air suspension, but I'd have to drive the BMW and this car back to back to figure out which one actually has a better ride quality. It's also really quiet in here. So Audi, for this car, they really went with luxury and ride quality as opposed to technology and range and all-out acceleration. But put your foot down here and you can see it's fast enough. I mean, this isn't going to be blowing your mind away and like snapping your neck. You want to look at the e-Tron S, which I sadly haven't had a chance to test yet. That adds a second motor at the back axle, giving you almost 500 horsepower when you're in the boost function. But overall, this should be plenty powerful for most people. But let's go ahead and see what we can get another time here. This time I'm not going to brake torque it, I'm just going to floor it. That feels a little quicker versus brake torquing it. 5.15 seconds there, so that is perfectly acceptable, but just keep in mind when you brake torque it, it does make the vehicle a little slower. So quickest acceleration possible, just floor the gas, make sure it's in S, make sure it's in dynamic mode for the transmission and the drive mode selector. And this thing is going to be plenty fast for most people as long as you don't drive like the quickest Teslas or the quickest Mach-E's. It's funny, when you go past the click point, you can really feel that additional boost. I mean, it literally provides you with an extra 50 horsepower almost for about 8 seconds total. And it's noticeable. It's nice to have that little function there with that little boost feature. And also, I just love how quiet this car is. I'm also sitting here getting a massage, which you can't even get in some of the mainstream offerings. And you know what, going around corners here, it's perfectly acceptable. What I love about this car as well is the visibility and the ride quality, because I can see out of the front, the sides, out of the back really well. It has a very traditional shape. For those of you who want something that's a little bit sportier on the outside, you can also get the Sportback version, which was the last one that I drove for this platform in general, which I liked. It just needed more power. But in the regular e-tron, it's a little more acceptable because you don't buy this for all-out acceleration. You don't buy this for 0 to 60 times. You buy it for luxury, for comfort, for quality, build quality, and range, which sadly, this vehicle's range does still continue to trail the competition. When I had a BMW iX, and that was the Performance M60, that one consistently broke the EPA's numbers. Like, I did constantly better versus like the 280-ish that the EPA rates. I got closer to 300. This car on a full charge was showing around 226 miles, and in my week's worth of testing in somewhat colder temperatures, like in the 50s to 60s, which honestly should be ideal for battery electric vehicles, it was doing around 220 miles of total range. And with the 150 kilowatt DC fast charging, it's not quite as fast as the e-tron GT, but you can still technically get to 10 to 80% in about 30 minutes. So it's fine. It's just starting to get a little bit behind the times. And I wonder what Audi's gonna do to update this car. I mean, they could easily do a few software updates. They could unlock more of the range by allowing us to use more of the battery pack. Because remember, this is a 95 kilowatt hour battery pack, but you can only use 86 and a half. It's a big cut, honestly. And this model here, Audis and Porsches in general and Volkswagens, they don't technically do one pedal drive. There is regen braking when you start pulling the paddles, where there's 3 different levels of regen, or 2 different levels, I'm sorry, and there's also an off mode for the regen. But again, it's still not quite as good as the one pedal drive as you're gonna get from competitors. Now I'm just gonna floor it here out of the boost mode and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise. Definitely feels a lot slower, and even if I put it to the floor here, it doesn't give me that extra little kick. 6.06 there, so it literally shaves almost a second off the 0 to 60 time when you put it in the boost mode in dynamic. So that's a pretty significant difference, so just keep that in mind if you guys want maximum acceleration. Audi gives you that nice little touch, but there are definitely some drawbacks to this car, but it's also still worth a look. I am looking forward to driving the higher performance S version, so hopefully Audi sends me that model to test for a week very soon. So after spending a full week with the latest 2023 Audi e-tron, I have to say, even though I've had a chance to drive so many competing vehicles, there's a lot of good choices out there compared to when this car first came out. The e-tron still has some pretty likable qualities. I mean, the interior build quality is among the best in the segment. The technology in the car is starting to get a little bit dated. I don't particularly like how slow Audi's MMI system can be when you're trying to load up Apple CarPlay. It also refused to connect to my phone a couple times. The screen size is fine, but I think Audi needs to work on their software and beefing it up. So that's something that I'm sure they're going to be working on in the coming years. The interior does have a fairly good amount of space. The back seat is more roomy versus its smaller compact entries. The trunk is a little bit bigger. The front seats are also comfortable with high quality leather. It's one of the few vehicles you can get with massaging seats. And even though this vehicle excels as a luxury vehicle with build quality and comfortable ride quality and seats, the range is definitely disappointing. I got around 220-ish miles on a full charge in my week's worth of testing. Definitely needs to beef that up to closer to 300 miles. This car should be doing 300 miles, especially when you look at competitors like the BMW iX. Now, technically the range is right on par with the Genesis GV60, which is a smaller vehicle. It's priced pretty similarly if you guys go for the top end. However, the Genesis is way quicker, and it also charges much faster. You can charge the Genesis in roughly half the time, in about 18 minutes, versus the 30 minutes that this car gives you, and it gives you about the same range. And also, what kind of hurts the e-tron is the fact that this is a more expensive vehicle. Now, keep in mind, it is a bigger vehicle versus something like the Genesis GV60. However, the Cadillac Lyriq is still less expensive than this car, and it is also bigger with more space in the trunk and in the back seat, but it's also slower unless you go for the all-wheel drive model, which I haven't had a chance to drive yet. This car, Audi used to have it started around 80-ish, like 82,000 when it first came out. Now it starts at around $72,000 for the base premium version. All of them come standard with dual motor all-wheel drive. My tester here is the fully loaded Chronos edition, which is built off of a prestige trim. It's roughly $18,000 more expensive, this one here, with a few of the options that it has, stickers for around $86,500. Now, $86,500 is about the starting price of where a BMW iX comes into play. However, the Beamer does have more range, and it also has similar interior space, and it's also quicker because it has more horsepower, so that's something to keep in mind. The e-tron no longer qualifies for the $7,500 federal tax credit because this vehicle is not built in America or in North America, it is built in Belgium. So sadly, until Audi decides to move production, this vehicle no longer qualifies for the tax credit. And at 86 grand, it is a somewhat expensive proposition, especially if you guys are favoring range and acceleration. But if you're favoring a more comfortable ride quality, a luxurious cabin, and more traditional looks, this is certainly still worth a look, especially if you guys are big fans of the styling of the Audi e-Tron. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2023 Audi e-Tron Chronos Edition. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.